Hi everyone. Today I'm going to be checking up on the horses and going on a little trail ride. So I got up and it was a really cold winter morning and I just sat down with some coffee and I decided to go outside and tend to my plants. When I finally arrived at the stable, I came to see my horse, Tango. She is a young mare Clydesdale, and you'll learn a bit more about her later. I decided to pick her hooves and brush her mane and tail because she had a few flax stuck in her mane and tail, so I just wanted to get her a bit cleaned up before our little ride. I took her back into her stall after the ride and I decided to fill up her hanger and give her some fresh water since she hadn't eaten yet or drank anything. Then I go to make Tango's feed. I add hay, grass, carrots, apples, cucumber, chaff, grain, barley, nuts, oats and coarse mix. I always throw in a little extra treat for all my horses, but I chose a sugar lump. After Tango had eaten, it was time to tack her up. I popped on her polo wraps, her saddle pad, her saddle and her bridle. I did her girth and I slid her stirrups into place. I also put in some light bits. Then I put on her little accessory and we were ready to go. I gave Oreo a quick pet and I mounted up. Tango gave a little lip flutter and decided to rear at Oreo, which really scared him off. And then she kind of took off without me kicking her on, but she was into a steady trot. We were transitioning, but she was a little bit tense and really tossing her head. She was in a pretty bad mood, although I did give her a few treats. Tango's behaviour really changed throughout the ride, which I was pretty surprised about, and the moon was halfway up by now, so I continued the journey in a slow walk and I was admiring the scenery. Here's a little montage of how the ride went. The ride was fairly smooth and by now the moon was completely up. It didn't seem to bother Tango that it was still snowing. I think she enjoyed it just as much as I did. As we approached the bridge, we spotted a girl and she passed us, but it seemed like Tango really did not like the bridge. I gave her a little telling off for rearing and she didn't seem to like that very much because she attempted to buck me off. Luckily I kept my control and balance and she was not happy. She learnt from her behaviour and we continued the ride. I was a little bit worried that she would act up again, but she seemed to be going alright except from all the head tossing and a few snorts, but other than that, she was great. Enjoy the montage. Seemed really agitated and she started rearing again. The journey uphill really wasn't helping and it just got worse from there. Tango was now leading with her shoulder, which is really unnatural for her to do, and she was trying to go towards the edge, but I had to gain control again and pull her back. She got so distracted by all the twigs and the branches on the floor, and she was just so put off, and she went into a sudden canter. We had to jump some of the twigs, and she suddenly came to a stop and started rearing again. I still was determined and decided to continue, but she tried to throw me off a couple times, and she was really not having it. I really didn't want to fight her all day, so I just became more laid back, and that seemed to do the trick for now. Some of her jumps were quite impressive. She hasn't really been to that many cross-country events. She seemed to really hate going uphill in the snow, so I just let her rear. I was being really patient and I tried to work her through it. Once we got to the top, we were just galloping through the trees and she seemed to really enjoy that. It brought her bad mood down a lot. I looked down at the view, being sure to not let her fall, because we were pretty close to the edge, but it was a really beautiful view from up at the top of the mountain. So we just continued galloping through the little forest and we were really having a fun time. The view was gorgeous and she didn't seem to be that distracted or agitated anymore by anything. She was just really thrilled by being up high. She then kicked me off, leaving me on the ground. I tried to get up and chase after her, but it was already too late. My only way down was to ride the zip line, so with no support, I took a massive risk and jumped on. I looked down at the waterfall and the lake, and it was so beautiful. I saw that all the snow was covering everything, but the whole campus still looked gorgeous. I was looking down at some of the horses in the paddock, and I couldn't spot Tango anywhere. Once I landed, I still couldn't see her. The thrill of the zip line was amazing. After some searching, I couldn't find her, so I just decided to look after some of my other horses. She still had the ignorance not to show up after I fed, groomed, and mucked the horses. Enchanting was a bit annoyed at me for not showing up earlier. After a lot of searching, I finally went to the cow barn and I saw George with Tango. He handed her over and he told me that she was kicking some of the trees nearby, so I was a bit annoyed at her and I returned to the stable. It was time to untack. I knew she was relieved after I took her saddle off. After finally putting everything away, I fed her and went home. It really was safe to say I was so tired after that, but I still had to tend to my crops, so I just started watering them. After a long and stressful day, I sat down with a book and I was so relieved to be home.